Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Homestead, and this is a new post-apocalyptic drama with some thrills and action thrown in, as we're living in a timeline in this film where a nuclear weapon goes off in Los Angeles and sends American society into complete chaos, and this family whose patriarch is a Green Beret veteran who finds his way to the compound of a rich man up in the mountains, played by Neil McDonough, and this compound becomes a very tumultuous powder keg balancing between the veterans who are treating this very stringently, very specifically, and trying to keep order and protection here versus this local community where it's like there's people that need help, but do you let them in and run out of food? And there's a lot of moral gray area that this film explores. And this film, which also, like, this film's supposed to be like an hour and 50 minutes, except there's like 15 minutes of credits at the end of this movie, so it's like a 95-minute film all said and done. You can tell that this was not made with the biggest budget from Angel Studios, who doesn't have the biggest budgets. So I feel like there's moments of you feel the limitations of this big conceit and what they could actually show in the film. They do maximize like particular moments where there's some really intense tension and suspense that they build up, because this really is a heightening of tensions. There's moments where you question the morality of what's going on here. In particular, this young man who's the son of this Green Beret who winds up getting put in a situation that does not end very well and winds up leading to the loss of somebody's life. And you have this moral dilemma that's bounced back and forth between our characters. And I feel like Neil McDonough, who's the real anchor of this film, playing this rich man whose compound this is, he brings a lot of depth to a lot of these Angel Studios films where, like, you could tell not a lot of these actors are like big names or have a lot of experience, but he brings this measure of veteran presence, and he really brings it here and brings a lot of the drama and the emotion to it, because he's being pulled between you have these military guys that he's brought in to do a job, and they have a very specific way of seeing things, and then you have his wife, played by Dawn Olivieri, who is very much like, we need to support our friends, and her faith becomes a big part of this film. I do think that it becomes too big of a focus at the very end of the film, where it just kind of throws out logic and reason, which that's a conceit of faith, is that you don't believe in logic and reason in that moment. You're, putting your prayers in and hoping for the best. And, it does build up that conflict. And I think this film does a fine job there. I do think some of the dialogue's a bit on the nose, a little bit too stiff in terms of trying to lay everything out in front of you. I do think that the story has a fine pace to it and builds up to certain points, has some good moments of tension and suspense that will put you on edge. I do think, like I mentioned, McDonough is really the anchor of this film. I think Olivieri does a really fine job too. Some of the other actors, it's like, they're doing fine. They're doing their jobs just fine. And there's, the film is not able to explore some of the bigger context of what's going on, but for this very intimate, specific story, I think it explores bigger ideas and themes of a situation like this in an effective way. And this, like, pretty obviously leads into a television series, which it literally plugs at the end of the movie. So, in many ways, this feels like the pilot of a television show, and might feel a little bit limiting in terms of its cinematic scope. But it still tells a good story, and sets up some interesting things, and has a strong central performance. And hopefully we'll never have to worry about the world that's presented in this particular film, but I think it does a fine job of showing what it would be like if it did happen. But those are my thoughts on Homestead. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.